Welcome to another edition of James Martell's Coffee Talk, where James, successful publisher, speaker, and author of Online Success for Non-Techies, talks frankly and openly with experts from within the internet marketing industry about strategies and techniques you can use to develop a successful online presence for your personal or corporate brand. Here's your host, James Martell.
Welcome to another edition of Coffee Talk. Tonight I've got Ian Lee on the line. Ian, are you there?
I'm right here, James. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's great to have you in the room and also on the call. So tonight we're going to be chatting about newsletters. It's an interesting topic because there's always this debate out there that I see sometimes in the forums, and I know we get questions at the support desk, and it's something that I've thought about over the years. Is this whole concept of should I start an email newsletter for my website or should I not? And I know you're big time into the newsletter arena, so we're going to have a good chance to chat about that this evening. My basic thoughts have always been over the years is it's always I try to always tie it back to the visitor personally. If it's going to benefit the visitor and it's part of your business model and it's something you want to do, then by all means jump into it. So let me give you a little intro so people know who you are. Ian is he's the founder of the Affiliate Marketers Alliance. He began his online marketing career in the mid-1990s. Ian started his own web development company and began managing websites and e-commerce initiatives for small businesses. Ian has gained clients such as the Canadian federal government and Team Canada pastry chefs. Currently, Ian is a business analyst for PartnerCentric, where he oversees ROI analysis and plays a key role in strategic business development. Over the years, Ian has helped many clients succeed at online newsletter marketing. In fact, he runs his own growing email list of clients. Ian now shares these experiences with us tonight so we can all start to consider the possibility of growing our own email newsletter. So once again, Ian, welcome to the call. So tell me, Ian, why would you suggest to someone who may be considering, would you recommend adding an email newsletter to your website?
Well, I think the short answer for me would be definitely yes. But I think as you mentioned, you need to go back to your business model. The first question I would ask is, what are you trying to achieve? In many cases, a newsletter can benefit a website by doing secondary marketing. It is my opinion that when a visitor visits your site, there has been a cost, whether it be effort, time, or money. In your case, you've spent resources in getting that eyeball to your website. I definitely feel it's a shame, to really lose out on the possibility of furthering your relationship with that visitor once they leave. So the short answer is, yes. Ask for permission to remarket to them via an email newsletter.
So with your site now, we had a good chance to chat about it today, and one of the things that you had mentioned to me is obviously the number of subscribers that you've grown your site to or your list to. Was, I think you said 11,000 members. And one of the things that you and I talked about, was that a large enough list, or was that how big was that list, and is it would you consider it a success? And obviously we both agree that it was definitely a success. Maybe you could give us just a little bit of a background about your website and how you began to build your email newsletter list and how long ago, and just give us a little history on that.
Right, absolutely. The website that I have the email newsletter list running is a health and nutrition website. And we started that probably in 98 or 99 or so. When we first started, we had 0 people, 0 members on our newsletter list.
Yes.
It was slow and painful to start. It's always slow and painful to start a newsletter list. At the very beginning, I wrote some code, I captured the person's email address and name, and I dumped it into my own database. Once we started growing, once we started testing creatives and testing incentives to get visitors to sign up for our free nutrition newsletter, we ran into a problem of once the list started growing, how do I manage the bounce backs?
Yes.
How do I manage, people replying to me? We basically outgrew the system that I was able to sort of build in-house for us, and I went and searched for hosted solutions where companies, all they do is manage your email list.
Perfect.
I've used quite a few of them, probably 2, 3 of the bigger ones out there, and I finally settled on one that meet our needs. They all have their pros and cons. You have to find out what technical needs that you have and find out which one best suits you. We've been using that system for quite a few years now, and we've grown to a stage of over 10,000, over 11,000 of active users. I think in the olden days, when I say olden days, it's the late 90s.
It's funny that we can say olden days now on the internet, isn't it? You figure, okay, you started your website back in 1998. I mean, back in those days, most people didn't even have an email address at that point.
Right.
So we're talking. We kind of refer to today a little bit as the Wild West. I mean, that was you were still the settlers crossing the prairies back in those days.
In fact, it was even more of a Wild West back then because there was nothing considered, spamming search engines. So I think everybody was spamming search engines to a certain extent at the time.
So what you had done, back then, what you had done, you'd actually, because you do have a little bit of a coding background, you'd actually wrote your own scripting and your own, software to manage your original email list as they began to grow.
Right, yeah. I started off writing my own script, very simple, subscribe, unsubscribe. Where I really ran into an issue was dealing with the bounce backs. As your list grows, people are going to, drop off from your list due to them not logging back into Yahoo, in a certain amount of time, and Yahoo cuts them off. They leave AOL.com. They use a different provider. So emails are always going to, need scrubbing your list. So that was where I ran into a problem. When we got to about 3,000 or 4,000 people, the bounce backs was getting pretty horrendous, and that's
so just for new listeners, maybe you could explain what a bounce back is.
Right. There are 2 types of bounce backs. When you send an email newsletter out, there's a hard bounce back, which means that email doesn't work, it no longer exists, or there's a technical error. There's a soft bounce backs, and those are typically, hi, I'm out of the office, you can contact me at a later date. So I needed a system that I can determine soft and hard bounce backs and not get rid of the people that are sending me soft bounce backs. At the same time, scrubbing my list or having an automated system to scrub my list for hard bounce backs, that is for email addresses that no longer work.
And scrubbing a list, that would actually, does that delete those email addresses?
Yes, it actually deletes the email address.
Okay. So with this whole idea now, just so people are aware, the site that we're talking about that you have this newsletter list on, it's an affiliate marketing-based content information-rich website. That I learned that today when we had a conversation over lunch.
Right. It is definitely a content website. In fact, it's more of a publishing company. The website publishes health articles, and an affiliate is a small part of it. That's a small part of the revenue generation process. The site basically generates revenue from newsletters, from CPC, CPA, and CPM as well.
Okay, so. And this, when you began this site, this is obviously a site that you've developed together with your wife?
Yes, this is the site. In fact, my wife was the one that started this site. The site was basically started because there was a lack of information for one of the topics that she was interested in. And being a healthcare professional, she wanted to be able to compile that and help other people with it. And that's that basically took shape in '98, and that's how the website got started.
Yeah. So. Obviously, people that are listening, and myself included, and yourself, when we bring a visitor to our website, obviously we want to maximize our revenues because, like you said earlier on, it's so true. When we finally get a visitor to come to our site, that obviously there was a cost involved, whether it was the time and effort it takes to build the page and then create the inbound links and move your page up in the search results so you can inherit that visitor, or whether you're actually buying it through paid search. There's definitely a cost involved. So your feeling is that because that visitor is now on your site, it's time to gather up their name and their email address so that we can, I think you said, continue to market to them?
Absolutely. Secondary marketing can add a nice nice mix into your overall marketing mix, whether that be to try and generate revenue, whether your goal is specifically to drive more traffic back to your website. I think a newsletter definitely has a place in the online marketing mix.
I remember when I actually had a chance to interview Brian Littleton, president of ShareSale there, and he'd actually said something very, very similar, where he was talking about, especially in the affiliate model, and obviously he's a network, so he's used to dealing with affiliates and merchants on both sides of the fence, as are you, because you're also in that industry or that side of the industry. So you're on the affiliate manager side and on the affiliate side, so you have a very unique perspective. But what Brian had said is, he said, it's one thing to bring somebody to your site and then refer them off to a merchant, and then get paid the commission. But he says you will increase your, and I don't remember the exact phrase he said, but your affiliate business will be miles ahead, is if you can somehow remind that visitor to come back to see you the next time that they need to buy that product, so you can now earn the revenue a second and a third time. And he actually went into quite a bit of detail on that. It was an interesting interview. So now you're saying the same thing.
Yeah, I can definitely see what Brian's saying. In fact, Brian is one of the smartest guys in the industry that I know. What he's saying is definitely true. Return traffic is so important nowadays that it's always easier to bring traffic that already knows your site, that's already warm, versus finding new traffic. Finding new traffic, we always want to find new traffic, but if that new traffic never stays and comes back, they're of no use to you. But with time, with certain marketing techniques, if you can bring a percentage of the new users back to you, you're going to have that many more page views on your website.
Absolutely. It got me to thinking. We got Bronwyn Bamber listening in, who's just built a tremendous business. And this whole concept of email newsletter, she kind of, because I've been watching her and listening about her success, it's actually brought this whole concept to me, this whole idea, should I put a list on my site, should I not? And personally, I don't have a lot of email lists on a lot of sites. And my new sites that I'm developing, sites that I have in the plans, definitely I'm putting together an email newsletter for those sites. And it's just going to be part of my overall strategy from now on. Because me looking, at Bronwyn and hearing the type of traffic that she's bringing in, if she can actually capture, and probably not the right word, but maybe it is the right word, and get a percentage of visitors into her list, so the next time she can be continually touching them, once or twice a month, send out a newsletter to them and keep them in contact. So I'm assuming that's basically what you're doing with your site. How does that work with your site?
Absolutely. When we bring a visitor to our site, I think the most important thing in generating newsletter signups is determining your traffic type. When you're on the internet and someone comes to your website, if you have a gardening website, I can only assume that they came to your website via a link from somebody else's garden website or from a search engine somewhere. They're probably looking for gardening information.
Yes.
If I can get an offer such as how to grow the greenest lawn on your street in an electronic format, and use that as an incentive for them to sign up, probably going to get a higher sign-up rate than if I just offer them a very general free gift.
Yeah.
So I think step number one is really determining your traffic type and getting the right offer in front of them.
So you're talking about, now you've got your software set up, coming up with an incentive for that visitor to now join your newsletter.
Absolutely. It's great to give away things that are free, and we can do it very easily with email and with internet and websites now. And there's no reason to offer free things to users on the internet. People love free things. In fact, I love free things. I sign up to a bunch of free things all the time. So.
Well, I know with the site where I sell the Affiliate Marketer's Handbook, one of the things I've been doing for years, ever since we put the handbook together in 2002, is offering a free copy of the table of contents, so they can have a look through, the first 39 pages to get an idea what it's about. And obviously, when they do that, prior to getting that, they enter their email list or their email address and their name, and then it moves them through to a page. So this idea, have you had a chance to, because I know you do a lot of analysis and a lot of testing and a lot of analytics, have you had a chance to, play with this whole idea of So with your site, you've got obviously your email form on the page, and right next to it, explain how it looks, maybe possibly, and then the offer that you're giving the visitors when you come to your site.
Right. Yeah, definitely. We've done lots of testing and optimization on our newsletter sign-up pages, and when we didn't give the free incentive, or when we gave the wrong incentive, you can see that the conversion rates definitely are not as high as when you find the right offer. Once you find the right offer, make sure it's prominent. And I think I'm going to call this a landing page. This is your newsletter sign-up page.
Yes.
Your landing page needs to be clear. It needs to be not cluttered with banners and navigation. I would suggest having a privacy policy in there. You may not be able to fit your privacy policy on that page as well, but you definitely want to have a link to your privacy policy. In fact, for all the users out there, you should have a privacy policy on your website telling people if you collect cookies, how you use information. And in fact, it's a selling point to tell your users that you don't rent, sell, or give your the information away to anybody else. It's used solely for the website owner to contact you regarding the things that you wanted to hear in the first place.
Absolutely, so important. I mean, nothing worse than, I've seen on some people's, privacy policies, or they'll put it next to their email newsletter. You can see even the short little ones. It'll say, "I will never sell, rent, or give away your email address." That's what I want to see. And then I see some of these little disclaimers. It'll say, "We will never share your email address with anyone other than our approved associates." And it's like, nope, don't want to put my name there. I mean, who are your approved associates? You ever joined an email list and then you start getting emails from his buddies? I can't stand it. Can't stand it. Oh,
there, that's right.
It's just like, and then how do you unsubscribe? So, our approved associates. So this whole idea of a privacy policy right up front, I like that. And this whole idea of, once you've got it put together, just not abusing your list. I see it all the time. So, but back on this idea of the incentive. So, in your case, what type of an incentive do you give away?
We are a nutrition site, so we're giving away nutrition tips. We've altered a couple of them, and we've found ones that work better and ones that don't. This should always be an evolving process. When you find something that converts well, you can never improve on it if you never try. So you should find other incentive tips, like I was saying about the gardening website, how to grow the greenest lawn on the street, how to grow flowers so that they don't die over the winter. I'm not a gardener, so I don't know, but those are just examples of different incentives to try. At the end of the day, you need to have enough impressions and measure your conversion rate and know which one works best for your traffic type.
So once do you continually play with this, or do you actually after a while settle down and pretty much stick with it, or is this something that you're always evolving?
If I had more time, I would try and test more things, but there's only a certain amount of hours in the day, and currently we're getting about a 60% conversion rate from users that are landing on our website, i.e. users that are landing on our website and seeing the newsletter offer, clicking on that link. When they get to the sign-up form, I can measure that about 60% of those people are signing up, so pretty happy with that at the moment.
So is that 60% of the total visitors, or 60% of the people that actually click through to the newsletter page?
It's the latter. 60% of the people who actually get to the newsletter page and see the offer.
Okay, so now that they've done that, they've come through, they've landed on your site, they've clicked through, they've joined your newsletter. Now what happens? Do they get a confirmation?
Right. The free nutrition tips comes in a autoresponder to the person who signed up, so they'll get that right away.
Okay.
And there's basically two ways to do it. One, you can run a double opt-in list. One, you can just run a normal list.
Okay. So maybe could you explain the differences?
Absolutely. A normal list is when somebody signs up to your newsletter, they're put in right away and they're active in your list. A double opt-in list requires that the end user puts in their name and their email address. The system will send them a verification email. They need to open that email up, click on a link, and actually activate their subscription. This is basically the double opt-in system preventing other people from using your email addresses, signing you up for weird things. This really enables the system to tell that you are really, excuse me, you are really who you say you are, and
so other people aren't signing you up for their list.
Right.
So with which of the two methods do you recommend?
Double opt-in is always a cleaner list. I've run both types of lists, and depending on what situation, I like the double opt-in list. Reason for that is it cleans, it keeps your list clean. People who use tests or fake emails aren't inputted into the list. And now, having said that, if you also run some sort of paid, pay-per-click campaign, you're losing out a lot of sort of potential signups when you run a double opt-in email list. It's known that double opt-in lists do not always convert at 100%. When you have 100 real people who sign up to a double opt-in list, you're never going to get 100 people who open the right email and click on that link. One, they may not get the verification email. Two, they may get the verification email, not read it properly, and never click on the link. Three, they may click on the link, and the server at the time was down, and they never get verified. So depending on the scenario you're in, a double opt-in list will always give you a cleaner list.
Okay. With the there's a few things that come to mind, a few questions that I'd like to ask you along the way. Obviously, as far as content and the development of content, being an information-rich site that you develop, and we're pretty much in the same vein over this side. We're always looking to develop content, and obviously now with the newsletter, there's another area of content development. What exactly do you, how often and what do you send out to your list?
Right. The newsletter is quite easy. I shouldn't say it's very easy. It's somewhat easy for us in that our goal for the newsletter is to drive traffic back to the website.
Yes.
We're always generating new content on the website. We send our newsletters out twice a month, and in every newsletter we include 3 or 4 new articles of the newest articles, and we drive traffic via the newsletter back to those pages. So we always have content for the newsletter because we're ongoingly creating content for the website anyway.
So with these pages, on your website, you go ahead and you create a brand new article. Then that becomes one of the topics for your newsletter.
That's right. The newsletter, let's say, would include 3 or 4 of the most recent articles. It would just include, very simple, one nice image, an intro paragraph, probably 2 or 3, 4 sentences long, and a link to send them back.
Directly to that page where they'll find the balance of the article.
Because our goal is to drive traffic to the website.
So now, with you mentioned in the email newsletter, you've got an image. So one of the questions I was going to ask you: do you recommend, using and in the old days where we're all based on text editors, but do you recommend an HTML newsletter or a plain text? And I think you probably just answered that. Maybe you could talk about your experience with, the look of the newsletter.
Sure. We went through a phase, actually quite a few phases over the years. I definitely remember the days, of what you said of people sending out only text email newsletters. To this day, because we know our demographics really well, we send 100% HTML newsletters. Now, there are some email system management systems out there that allow users to select whether they want text-based or HTML-based newsletters.
Yes.
In which case, the person sending out the newsletter would have to do twice as much work, make sure the text email is set up properly, make sure the HTML version is properly. To save time on our part, we've moved 100% to HTML, and over the last 5-6 years of doing it, we've never had one complaint.
So they much prefer, yeah.
And again, that's based on our demographics. If you're into a very high-tech programming, sort of community, some of those, users would probably want their email in text.
Yeah, probably. Good old techies.
Right.
So, I agree. I mean, I use Gmail these days, although it's been acting up lately, starting to annoy me. But obviously Gmail is all HTML, and meaning for those maybe that don't understand HTML, simply we can now, when the email comes in, it's a picture, it's an image. They can insert, photos and any kind of graphical component they want to it, so it actually pretties up the newsletter nicely. But I can't imagine that and then you probably just confirmed it, the vast majority of people now, their email programs would definitely be HTML.
Right, and just to add on to that, absolutely, most people will have HTML capabilities. The ones that don't choose not to, so it's not like they can't view it.
Right.
And there's, Outlook is probably the most used email client out there right now. you really need to test your HTML newsletters because it may look a little different in Outlook than in Gmail, than in Yahoo, than in Hotmail. They all run their own sort of CSS and their own way of highlighting text, deciphering the HTML code. So you really need to do testing on your newsletter template to make sure that it shows up properly in all those mediums.
So that's probably a good time to talk about the software that you use to send out these emails so that you can actually test it. So you mentioned in the early days, in the olden days, that you started with a little script that you had developed yourself, and then you evolved and you've tried a few newsletter management software programs, I guess, for lack of a better word. And what have you settled on, and what actually do you use today?
Right. I've actually settled on a system called Aweber. Used a few of them out there. Like I say, some of them are very powerful. Again, this was the one that met our needs, and we've been using it for a few years now, and it's worked really well.
So maybe you could explain some of the features, what you like about it?
Sure, absolutely.
How much does it cost? Is it you to buy the software? Is it a one-time
This
fee?
is a hosted email management system, meaning that it doesn't run locally on your computer. It's hosted on the aweber.com website. I like that in the first place because my machine doesn't need to be on. I don't need to pull emails back to get subscription status. But again, it depends on your business needs. If that's what you require and you need the customization, maybe that's one route to go. But I settled on Aweber. They allow me to run autoresponders right away. So if someone signs up to my newsletter, I can send them an automated autoresponder right away, letting them know, thank you for signing up. Here's the free gift that you get for signing up to our newsletter. It allows for broadcasts, so I can do unlimited broadcasts every month. Broadcasts are, basically doing your newsletter blast.
Yeah.
I do mine twice a month.
Okay.
Not only that, what I really like about the system is they are very strict on how clients of theirs, meaning me, on how I can get names into the system. I've used other systems that are less lax and allow you to upload thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of email addresses.
Yes.
Over time, that bogs the system. That bogs the system down, and the system just becomes painfully slow to manage. With this system, when I queue, usually within half an hour it'll go out. Sometimes it might take an hour, but within half an hour to do a blast, of our size is fantastic. In fact, the biggest selling feature I would say for Aweber, I don't work for them. It sounds like I should be, but the biggest selling feature for Aweber is they allow the end user to run a double opt-in system to give you that clean list. In addition to that, the best part I love about Aweber is that when their system will automatically unsubscribe hard bounces from your list if they bounce 3 times or more in less than 60 days. So in 2 months' time, if you send out 4 newsletters and that person bounced 3 times, the system will automatically know it's a hard bounce. The email probably doesn't work anymore because it bounced 3 out of the last 4 times in the last 2 months.
Right.
They're going to automatically subscribe it. That really saved tons of time in troubleshooting and weeding out all the email addresses that didn't work. In the old days, like I say, I wanted the list to be as big as possible because it sounded great.
Yeah.
But today, I know that my open rate, a high open rate and a high activity rate is what I want. It's not, the size of the list. It's the quality of the list that counts. So
when you say open rate, you're talking about when that email actually lands in their email box. Out of all the 11,000 that went out, exactly how many of those emails were opened?
Right. Because we run a very clean list. In fact, we used to run a double opt-in list, and now we use Aweber to run the double opt-in list. Now we've moved over to a not double opt-in list. But like I say, their system allows us to keep our list clean by subscribing people who bounce more than 3 times in 2 months. We actually get an open rate of about 65%.
That's awesome.
That's pretty good. I've seen higher, I've seen lower, but we're very, very happy with that.
Is that something you've obviously had to practice and improve upon over the years?
Oh, absolutely. Before I was able to scrub out these email lists, I was getting an open rate of 10-20%. Didn't know that some of the email addresses didn't work. So that was really affecting my statistics.
So what do you find? Is there anything that comes to mind? What's the difference when you obviously if you're sending them out some campaigns work well, some obviously not so well, and vice versa. Is there anything that stands out that, okay, this works, and when I send out my email to my list, if I do this, I get a pretty good return?
Right. There are two sort of business indicators that I use for email marketing. One is the open rate. I believe that the open rate is determined by the subject line. The better your subject line is, the more targeted it is, to the season, to the end user, the higher the open rate. That's what I've seen. The better your messaging inside your email is going to garnish a better click-through rate. When you offer the right person, you offer the right ad copy, that's going to incent them to click. So open rate is determined by the subject line, and click-through rate is determined by the content inside the email.
This content, again, in the email, so you say there's a couple of articles. How do you structure the look? Obviously you said it's an HTML. I'm assuming Aweber, do they have templates and stuff that you can use?
Yes, they have templates. We use our own custom templates, so the newsletter looks somewhat like our website. It has our top navigation bar. It's a very simple newsletter setup. There's a top navigation bar. There is 3 or 4 articles usually, and I typically like to put a sponsor on somewhere in the newsletter, but I make it clear that this is a sponsor.
Okay.
And what's at the bottom of the newsletter is our privacy policy that links back to our website, letting them know that we're above board. Here's what we're doing with your information.
How much time would you say it takes you to manage, your newsletter list on a monthly basis?
We blast twice a month, so the few days before the deadline, the chief editor would get all the articles ready. Our designer would create that HTML email for us, and the Aweber system probably takes. We've been doing it for so long. We're probably pretty quick now. 10, 15 minutes, because what we want to do is load it up, then attest to ourselves, make sure all the links are working and everything looks right before we actually queue it up in the system.
Yes. And then you mentioned earlier that then you test. Do you send a copy to yourself first so you can have a look at it?
Right. Every time we change templates, we test rigorously in Outlook, in Gmail, in Yahoo, in Hotmail. Now that we know, everything is pretty stable, and the only thing that's swapped out is the sponsor and the article text and the images.
Yes.
It's pretty simple now. We do most of our testing in Outlook.
And that's Microsoft Outlook.
Right. Actually, yeah. Opening up the email in Outlook to test, right.
Okay. Very interesting. So now you'd mentioned that a person comes to your site. Of the brand new people that come in, you get around 60%, I think you said, that click on the link. Or, of the 60% that click on your newsletter link that takes you to their newsletter sign-up page. Sign up for your newsletter. Then the autoresponder goes out, probably welcomes them to your list. And every couple of weeks they get an email. What would you say, maybe you know the number, maybe it's a guess, but if you send out your email, how many of those people now, you said approximately, I think you said 65% will actually open the email. How many of those people that open it, can you track to see how many actually clicked on a link and came back to the site?
Absolutely. Aweber has a function where when you blast your newsletter out, it'll take every one of your links and do a special encoding in them so that you can log into Aweber, look at the blast that you did 2 weeks ago, and see exactly how many times each of your links inside your newsletter was tracked. Some systems out there, you can do that, but it's manual. With Aweber, it's automatic. You just load it up, click queue, the system will do the rest. Do all the tracking, do all the reporting for you.
And away it goes. So if you wouldn't mind sharing the numbers, of that 65% of the 11,000 that you send out to, how many actually would end up back on your site, typically?
Offhand, I don't know, because when you calculate click-through rates, I know how many people click on the first article at the top, and the second article, the third, the fourth, but I'm not sure if that person clicked on all 4 or if they just clicked on 4 or the first one.
Right.
So it's tough to give a sort of a click-through rate, but of the people who open, I can see that they're all very, very active, and when you when you send them the right article, you're going to see your page views increase because of that dramatically.
Yes. With the Aweber system, let's say I've got a page of content here and I want to obviously I want to set this page up to be my newsletter landing page, so this is where they actually sign up for the newsletter. Does AMember give you some code that actually gives you the box where the user can enter their name and their email address? How does that exactly work?
Absolutely. When you sign up to be their customer, you log into an admin area. It's very, very intuitive. You go through a couple of steps of instructions. It spits out the HTML code for you. All you do is copy and paste that HTML code onto your web pages, upload it to your server, and everything will track properly from there on. And when people sign up, they actually, their information is actually gets dumped into Aweber, and and the end user gets sent back to your site, thanking them for signing up to your newsletter.
So for them, so that sounds like it's pretty simple to actually set it all up. If you wanted to, offer them an incentive. So now you've taken the code from AMember, you've placed it on your page. I imagine you can put it on as many pages as you want.
Absolutely, as many pages as you want.
So if you wanted to put it on the top right-hand corner of your home page, or top right-hand corner of every page, or just set up just a single dedicated page, you could do that.
Absolutely, you can put it in as many places as you want. And if there are, some places, let's say at the top navigation bar where you don't have enough room for that, you can put a link or a button there. When they click, you can drive the end user to the page that actually has the full information and the sign-up form.
So if we said, we wanted to develop a little incentive here. So when somebody, give that visitor an incentive to join our email list, we could come up with a little special report, a PDF, maybe a little audio, something that we're going to give them as an incentive. How do you work that? Is it simply you put your obviously the AMember sign-up form on your page, and beside it you put a little image of get a nice little book cover or whatever you're going to give them. Once they enter their name and their email address and they hit join, obviously that goes into the Aweber system. How do you then deliver the goods that you just promised that you'd give them?
Right. The easiest way would be to set up, let's say if you had a PDF, you would set up that PDF to be attached to your autoresponder. That's sort of your thank you for signing up, here's your gift email.
So it's just as an attachment in the email that's being sent back to them automatically.
Exactly.
Okay. Perfect. Is there the provisions that if you preferred to set up a page on your website where you had a picture of the product and then a little link that they could download it from your page, can you set, I guess in your autoresponder you could put a link back to the page where they could now grab it as well?
That's right. The autoresponder is something definitely good to set up. You don't have to have one, but it's great to set up so that the person knows, they sort of feel the warm and fuzzy from you that, hey, this person actually realized, I signed up to their list. And the thank you page can actually be on your website, so you can send them to a page that says thank you for signing up. Here is click on this link to download your free PDF or whatever the incentive may be.
Yes, terrific. So now, what does it cost to use the Aweber service?
I think the last time I checked, it was something like $19.95, so $20 a month, and that's for up to 10,000 contacts.
Okay.
Like I say, 10,000.
So that's what you say. It's a hosted service. So the software resides on the Aweber, probably aweber.com.
Right. Exactly.
And then you just pay a monthly subscription, and then everything's handled from there. How long would it take somebody that's, and obviously there's a guess, but typically somebody that's got some basic skills on doing this, how long would it take them to sign up and then maybe get the subscription form placed on their page?
I think it would be very, having been a long-time Aweber user, I think it would be very, very easy. They have live chat. They have a toll-free number that you can call, and the tech support there is fantastic. They can get you all the information that you need very, very quickly and get you up and going very, very quickly.
Awesome. So I guess for incentives then, for people that may be thinking of incentives, they could put a special little report together, maybe hire somebody at Elance to write a little, something that obviously is of great value that's relevant to their visitors. They could then join Aweber, place the little subscription form on their website. Any recommendations on where to place that form? You mentioned you've got a dedicated page for it. Do you put it anywhere else on your site, or how do you promote your newsletter on your own personal website?
Right. I do it a few ways. I have a dedicated page that hosts the free offer and the sign-up, But I also have links going to it via banners, 728 by 90 on my own website, via text links, and via sort of smaller button banners. And Aweber allows you to, with some coding, Aweber allows you to track which is the most effective way. For instance, if the person read to the bottom of my article and clicked on that link to join the newsletter, I would know, so I can see in the back end which links works the best for my user type.
So if somebody wanted to get everything set up, they're probably, it sounds like a relatively painless process. And then you're saying that once you get this under your belt and taking care of this each month is not a lot of time once you've got the content. Obviously, it always gets back to the content. And then off you go.
Right, absolutely.
Anything else that comes to mind that you'd like to share with your experience with newsletters?
Well, I should just encourage your users to be patient, when your list grows, and keep testing. I can remember the first time that I nailed the message perfectly and conversion rates basically soared through the roof. That, bitten by the bug since then and can't stop doing it now. So keep testing and keep working on it.
Yeah, it's fun, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's interesting, this whole business. There's just so many angles and aspects to it that, it's just a matter of digging in and, and if you like doing it, like obviously I can hear it in your voice that this is something you enjoy doing, as do I, and I know the listeners, they gotta, it's fun. People think we're crazy, but I think this is a blast. I mean, to me, sending out an email newsletter, which I do, is, it absolutely bombs. It's like, okay, hang on a second here. What did I do wrong? And it's something that I missed or something that I kind of goofed up. And then, like you said, when you nail it, whoa, that's cool.
Right, exactly.
So, Ian, you know what? I want to probably wrap it up here. I want to thank you for taking the time tonight. It's always good to get somebody else on the line that has real-life experience that doesn't mind sharing it with other people. It's much appreciated. I know the listeners would have had a good time, but you shared a lot of good information. Thanks for that information on Aweber, and thanks for the information you shared about your own site and how you go about, obviously, running a very successful newsletter from your own website. And congratulations on doing that.
Thanks very much. And again, thank you for having me, James. It was a blast. Thank you.
Awesome. And for the rest of you guys that are listening that are live, we'll meet you back in the conference room. For those that may be listening to as a recording that are in your car or out and about, good luck to you if you decide to start an email newsletter, and we will see you on the next Coffee Talk. Bye for now.
To learn more about James Martell, the School of Internet Marketing, and how you or someone on your staff can quickly and easily learn how to develop a successful online presence for your personal or corporate brand, visit theschoolofinternetmarketing.com. That's www.theschoolofinternetmarketing.com.